Welcome back to the Interact Post. Today, Article 12 will include us going over and discussing leaks related to Genshin, specifically looking at the rumored upcoming characters for a lot of Fontaine, and how the banners might change in the future on really looking at how they'll turn from 2 banners to 3 banners possibly. Once again, we do want to say that all the info we have found you can find yourself. We are not beta testers and have no inside information. We will be using various sources that everyone has access to. Now with all that out of the way, onto the video. So the first bit that we are going to be looking at is some of the rumored characters that are going to be coming out. And I know that we've talked a lot in the past about, just looking at a lot of the 5 stars that are already going to be out here, talking in Fontaine with how Chiori is going to be coming out, then after her, most likely Arlecchino and Cloran coming alongside of Sijuan, and, possibly some other new characters that haven't been released yet. But at least those we have talked about, especially the last 2 Interact posts. But some things have been throwing around where I know Sijuan has been a constant question of whether or not she's going to be a 4-star or a 5-star. It seems that as it's just kind of going back and forth, it doesn't seem like we're really on one side or the other. A lot of recent leaks have been calling her a 4-star to be thrown on someone like Cloran's specific banner, which means that she would be a 4-star, not a 5-star. She could also be a part of a double banner of a new characters. I think that we'll just kind of have to see what that looks like in the future. But also looking at characters in the future like Dahlia, who might be coming around in some sort of Mondstadt event. That was, at least if you guys have been looking at leaks and whatnot. There's a mummy girl, I believe her name's Ivka, who's going to be probably coming around in 4.6, which that'll be interesting right alongside Arlecchino, so maybe a 4-star on her banner. Just a lot of different things that may be coming out. And even somebody like Amelia could make an appearance and possibly even be a 5-star herself, considering she is tied heavily with the Hexenzirkel, which is a pretty prominent type of group in Genshin, so it seems like she might be coming out as a 5-star. I think all these things are extremely cool to look at, especially with, a lot of people, I think, with the summer coming up in the, well, not necessarily near future, but at least towards the end of Fontaine, and even the beginning of Natlan, looking at Alice making an appearance, or Klee's mom, especially with that Archipelago event that we get every year during the summer.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of cool things to be looking forward to. Just all of these new characters is going to be a lot of fun to play with. I, of course, personally am more interested in a lot of the new 4-stars because, of course, that's what I'm going to be targeting. That's what I go after on new banners. That's just what I do. I don't recommend everyone do that. You'll hear people tell you don't always pull for the 4-star because there is a risk involved with doing so. You got to be okay with getting the 5-star because you may get the 5-star well before you get the 4-star. And maybe, some of you might know exactly what I'm talking about because that happened with you on Chevres. And so it can just happen. So, but like, I'm excited for, I did forget about Dahlia for a while, because we haven't really talked about him. And I'll be honest, I don't look at leaks or speculations, Reddit, Twitter, all that stuff quite as much as you do, Vixen. But it's been a while since at least we have addressed Dahlia, kind of back in a video where we were even talking about Varka and some other stuff, really just looking out ahead. I think it was the video we were talking about some Natlan stuff. But yeah, I'm really hyped for Dahlia, new 4-star from Mondstadt, so that'll be really cool to see. I just want to add him to my roster, and it's going to be a lot of fun, kind of reminding me of Mika, because, that's another late Mondstadt 4-star character we got well after Mondstadt, in the middle of all the Sumeru stuff. So very excited for him. I'm also excited for Ikfa. I can't remember right now. It's either Ifka or Ikfa, like, so I can't exactly remember, but she is the mummy girl, and I'm excited for her because that's a new character. And so I'm excited for Ikfa and to see how, she'll fit into Dendro teams. Maybe is she going to be another Yao Yao type character, or is she going to be more damage focused, maybe more like kind of what Kali does. So I'm excited for that as well. All the 5-star and 4-star talk, you were talking about Sijuan, and it really, she has been kind of going back and forth in the leaks, like, okay, she can be a 4-star or 5-star. I just want to know, and I mean, personally, I'm kind of hoping she's a 4-star so I can have like an excuse to go after her. So I'm excited. Another Hydro character. Hydro's another really great element, so she's going to be a valuable character at that. And I think what we were talking about in previous videos, and you'll hear a lot of other people bring up, is that she's probably going to be some kind of healer, a Hydro healer from off field, so that's going to be very valuable. I'm kind of just thinking of her as like a better Barbara in a sense, because Barbara can heal from off field, but it's not the best. It's just that her healing interval is very, very long, and so it just doesn't feel good all the time. You don't get the heal quite when you need it. Maybe you die right before you get it. I know that's happened for me, so having a new hydro healer will just be fun to play with, and really excited for that.
Yeah, I definitely think that a lot of what is going to be coming up, looking at Dahlia, is actually that character is very similar, at least similarly from what we've seen from a lot of people drawing him. He looks like the kind of character of like a Rosaria type vibe, but basically like you were talking about, like a Mika and Rosaria kind of like mixed to make a character. So more stuff with Mondstadt, I think, coming in, and possibly some more Mondstadt stuff. I love going back and going to the old areas and doing new events and stuff that has to do with them in story. So
Oh yeah, definitely, for sure.
looking at the next part though, going a little bit beyond necessarily upcoming characters and just kind of seeing how maybe quote unquote quality of life, or just the entire idea behind the game, the basics of the game are changing, instead of just looking at characters that have always kind of been in Genshin's mind. It seems like, we're going to be looking at some banner changes and how the banners work. Not necessarily, obviously, the banners themselves with the characters on them, but how the banners themselves work, how even the Abyss a little bit as well. We've been getting a few leaks here and there looking at how the Abyss is going to be a little bit different, how, maybe in 4.4, probably going to be 4.5 at this point, looking at how the Abyss is going to change possibly to having 2 or 3 more floors on top of the already 12 floors we have now. And, there's a lot of people obviously with their own personal opinions on that. Is it going to be the same level 100s? Are there going to be higher level than that? Is it going to be more difficult? What do the rewards look like for doing so? But I don't know. There's a lot of stuff going on with the Abyss personally. I think that with my personal opinion with the Abyss, I think there are a lot of people who think it should be stronger and it's not difficult enough. I think at the end of the day, though, that's just a lot of people who have a lot more time on their hands than most of the Genshin community. I think I shouldn't say most, but I think a lot of the Genshin community is based on people who are just playing the game for, fun, and they just want to do their teams and have fun and, get off work and just find out a way to relax and play the game and do well, get primos freely, but through the Abyss, and just get through the Abyss, get it done, and kind of just go on to their next thing, go on with their daily lives. Whereas the rest of us that are either content creators or people who are day in, day out gamers for Genshin, maybe want more content that's more difficult because we have C1 this, C2 this. We've grinded resin for 3,000 resin on this one character. Some of these other people don't have that ability. So I think adding things that are maybe a little bit 120, 130 level, things, especially the early characters that can't really get the rewards from that. I think it's a little bit of a disservice to the people who are just playing a little casually, but that's my own personal opinion kind of with what the Abyss looks like. I don't know what your thoughts are about just specifically the Abyss Rift.
I mean, yeah, I'll be honest, I am very excited just for the idea of getting more content in the Abyss, maybe something that works even a little bit differently. Just adding on to the Abyss is fine too. I know there's an audience out there that's like, okay, we need something different, and I actually do agree to an extent. But honestly, like kind of like what you were saying, I just wanted to add on, in any video game, even aside from Genshin, the people who do put a lot of time into that game, or even maybe you don't put a lot of time into the game because the game maybe just not, it's not as content rich or savvy or whatever. But any one of us gamers who are very dedicated to a particular game that we are just in love with, and we just really like the game, we're always telling our friends, oh yeah, you got to try this game out, it's just so good. When we hit that end game and we've hit the spot where like we have nothing else to do, I beat the game, I can't do anything except repeat stuff, right? Then it obviously makes sense. You're never going to say no to new content. It's like, oh, something new, something refreshing. So, exactly like you were saying, for the veteran players, people who've been here since day one, even aside from having powerful accounts, something new, something refreshing is gonna feel good.
Totally. I think there's just a lot of changes that are going to come with the Abyss, and I think it's a lot of good stuff that we'll get. And I do think just an addition or maybe some different changes will be good. I'm not going to say no to any of it, but I do hope maybe something different is what's in store. But at this point in time, only time's going to tell. But looking a little bit further into how the leak that we're going into kind of next, I guess, is more or less how I want to transition this, and that's the 5-star weapons. And the leaks that we've kind of looked at are they are far ranging with these weapon and banner type things, and specifically looking at the weapon banners for standard 5-star weapons, Primordial J-Wing Spear, Beacon of the Red Sea, Tainari's weapon, Wolf's Gravestone, which is Deluxe, going all onto those standard weapons. It seems like you actually have the ability to either buy these in some sort of gift sets, and maybe that is something along the idea of you can spend a certain amount of Genesis crystals to buy a weapon and maybe some of the materials to level it up, maybe with some enhancement ore to level it up as well. Just that, as well as maybe the idea alongside that we've seen with other leaks where it's more or less something like you use a certain amount of dust or whatever, or you get maybe something along the lines of something like the Stardust and the Star Glitter that we already have, a new type of currency that allows you to go into a separate shop to buy these weapons as well. Kind of something that I know a lot of people have wanted already with standard 5-star characters and even regular 5-star characters, the limited versions of them. So there's a lot of different changes in looking at just the idea of giving away these 5-star weapons. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I'm extremely excited because I kind of skip Zhao's weapon every time it comes around because I have an R5 deathmatch and it's not necessarily too necessary on my account, but it is nice to see and it'll be nice to have. But there's no point in personally for me wasting the pity, wasting the amount of wishes I have for that weapon.
Right, that totally does make sense. It's like, why would I go out and potentially drain myself of 20,000 Prima Gems, or maybe even more if you get really unlucky? Because that's just how the weapon banner can be, requiring you to get 2 of the weapon you don't necessarily want, and then you have the guaranteed one. It just works differently, and it can be more expensive. There's definitely a higher ceiling for paying more on the weapon banner than there is on the limited banner. But honestly, this whole idea of being able to obtain 5-star weapons, mainly kind of looking at the standard ones, from like a new currency that you were kind of you mentioned that. I do like that, and if they do that, I'm all for it, just because, and maybe there's other people out there like me who, I've been playing the game for a long time at this point, and I still don't have standard 5-star weapons that I know I do want for sure. I don't have an Amos's bow. I don't have a Wolf's Gravestone. I've wanted a Wolf's Gravestone for a long time, and I still don't have it. And the thing is, I can't guarantee that no matter how much money I spend on the game, which I don't spend a lot on the game, but even if I were to do that, it's just like getting those 4 stars on the standard, like Lisa, Amber, Kaya. They're very difficult to get because they never get placed on those character banners. So just like that, it's difficult to get some 5-star weapons because they just may not drop for you very soon. It could take you 2-3 years. I still don't have Mona, Dia, or Jean because I guess more or less Mona and Jean, Dia had her own banner and I didn't wish on it. But my point is, I can't guarantee those. So having some kind of way to target getting a Wolf's Gravestone in my case would be pretty nice, because at least I could know someday I can actually voluntarily grab that, piece of gear so I can use it.
Looking beyond the actual, 5-star weapons that we've both just talked about, going on to the idea of the banner changes themselves, the actual banners themselves getting some changes. From what we've seen, at least from leaks, and what the changes that possibly could come are that a lot of what's going on right now is changing the idea of an entirely new way the banner works. And it's not necessarily to say that pity's changing or anything like that. It's more along the idea of you're going to be seeing new banners that are going to be popping up for either characters' birthdays. So let's say Raiden's, or actually since she's out right now, if Alhaitham's birthday is in 2 days, then in 2 days, Alhaitham's banner will pop up, let's say, for 24 hours for his birthday himself. And, you'll be able to wish those 24 hours for him. And maybe that banner will work the exact same way, and he'll have his weapon with him. It'll be 2 separate banners, so you can grab he himself. Now, they may not even bring the weapon with him, which I would keep that in mind a little bit, to think of the idea that we could possibly not get the 5-star weapon with it. So keep that in mind. That might be something that they purposefully still do, so that you kind of have to wait still to get the actual weapon for them later on down the line. But this does help a lot of people that are just wanting to only go after a certain character, and they already have the amount that they have saved, they just have to wait for the rerun to happen, which can allow them to get the pulling out of the way and then go on to the next thing and pull someone else afterwards that they had to maybe have skipped if they had to wait for a character's rerun in the future. So I think the idea of these character birthdays, or even something related to the release date, so let's say back in 2023, January 23rd is when, or in 2 days, once again, if this was when the banner would, or the first time Al Haytham's banner had released, and this was his official release date was in 2 days, then maybe he would also get one in 2 days, a banner that day as well. And so looking at that type of stuff, and maybe some anniversary stuff as well. I know the anniversaries themselves are a very hot topic, but the leaks have been talking about character birthdays, release dates, and anniversary events that could possibly bring up a lot more character reruns for these maybe triple banners type idea that people have been throwing around.
Yeah, I think it's definitely very interesting. Like, if we did get something like that, just like you already mentioned, it would definitely help a lot of the more casual or even just free-to-play players, with their planning. Like, because I know I have found myself in this scenario where, oh man, I really want to pull this character. There's only 3 days left, but I don't want to risk not having enough because the next banner in 3 days is the character I've been saving for, and I just don't know, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, having something like that where there's just more characters more frequently, I think it can help some, and not even just free-to-play players. I mean, this can even help veterans and whales. Just getting what you want on a better, type of plan, I guess I could say. It's kind of hard for me to put that in words, but I think you already said it very well. But it does bring to mind the idea of, when are we getting triple banners? I don't know if you have anything on that already, Vixen. I just know I'm pumped for when that happens. I've heard a lot of talk about it, and the actual, time we get that is still a little bit unclear. But that's going to be very interesting. So what do you have to say about that, Vixen?
Well, looking at like triple banners, I know some at least different changes. People think that it's going to be starting around 4.5, and the possible different triple banner scenarios that have been throwing around are, at least the first and foremost, just triple characters all at once. So let's say Ayaka, Al Haytham, and Nilu. All three of them have banners at the same time, and possibly each of them getting their own weapon banner changes as well, meaning that there's going to be 3 separate weapon banners as well, so you're not going to have to deal with 2 weapon banners or 3 weapons on one specific banner. So maybe the weapons will stay at a 75-25 for the chance whenever you get them. Maybe it'll go to a 50-50. Some changes will probably happen there, but that's the first kind of scenario. The other scenario is having like 3 different parts of, in thirds. So right now the banners are in a 6-week period for a phase of, during Genshin. And let's say 4.4 is 6 weeks long. Well, there's 2 halves, the first half and the second half. Well, 4.4, the first half is going to have Shanyu and Nahida. That's 2 characters. There's your first half. The second half is going to have Zhao and Yayamiko. So that's going to be your second half. Well, instead of those being 3 weeks apart to make up the 6 weeks, it'll be 3 different parts, meaning it'll have 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and 2 weeks, which will give 2 characters on the first third. The second third is going to have another 2 different characters, and then the third is going to have 2 separate characters than the other 4. So that'll be a little bit of a difference as well, and then possibly having 3 characters all in the first phase of something. So let's say, once again, going Ayaka, Al Haytham, and Nahida, and then, or Nilu, and then having on the second half, having like this. Right now we have Raiden and Yoimiya. So it'll be 3 and then 2, which brings it out to 5 over the course of that time period. But all of these things are going to be changing, and then going back to the birthday banners, where maybe they're going to keep the 2 banners with the weapon banners, not change anything necessarily there, but bring in birthday banners, constantly, basically every few days, or maybe once a week. We're basically going to have a new character have a birthday. So you're always waiting for the next character to have their birthday, and it allows a lot more free reign for characters to be popping up more, as well as a little bit more consistently, so that even down the line, half a year from now, what characters are going to be coming out when. Whereas right now we're just always speculating when they're going to come out, and we only really know until maybe a few weeks before, and even then it can still be up in the air.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot to keep in mind. All those different scenarios of like what this change could entail. Like, I think my personal favorite as far as the formatting for these potentially triple banners, or the different formats for it, I think my favorite would be if they just, instead of doing the 2 halves per version, so 4.4 first half, Xianyu Nihida, okay, 4.4 second half, Zhao and Yaimiko, is making it 3 separate phases of 2 banners. I think that's just my personal favorite, if out of all the different scenarios. Just, you know, it gets the banner cycling quicker, yes, so things are going to be faster, and maybe if you're saving and you're planning, you know, it's just, you know, something to work around with. So instead of, you know, banners changing every 3 weeks, now they're changing every 2 weeks. But at the same time, if you have to miss something, you can know that, well, because we're getting banners faster, and they're still double banners, but they're just happening a week sooner than usual. So you can, it kind of cramps everything together, and the characters will come around, you know, a lot sooner than usual, you know, so maybe Yulo can come back sooner for some people.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the favorite, and I do like the idea of the specific, you know, birthday banners. I think that's a cool idea. All of this stuff, though, is up in the air. Let us know what you guys kind of think about a lot of the things that we talked about in this video. There has been plenty of information, even though it's only kind of been 2 major parts. So kind of let us know what you guys are thinking about some of the things we talked about, as well as what you guys personally would want for Genshin to do in the future. That's everything we really have for today, so we'll see you guys in the next one.